It starts off in a prison. An inmate is struggling to do pull-ups. His traumatized cellmate is in the corner counting off reps. Prison guards appear. They tell the convict that he's being released. We follow the prisoner to the outside. It's revealed that he's a little man. The little man's name is Calvin. He's picked up by his partner in crime, Percy. There's no time to sleep for the wicked. Percy already has a job set up for the two. A crime boss wants them to steal a rare diamond. We meet Daryl. He anticipates that his fiancée is going to drop pregnancy news. He wants Jimmy to surprise her with a performance when the news drops. The fiancée, Vanessa, arrives. Daryl romanticizes Vanessa about their past history. He confesses his shortcomings, one of those being giving her an engagement ring without a diamond. Vanessa finally gets the floor. She starts to announce her big news. Before she can get the words out of her mouth, Daryl interrupts with his hopes. Jimmy comes out from the back and begins his song and dance. Pump the brakes. That ain't Vanessa's news. Vanessa's news is about a big promotion at work. Daryl and Vanessa aren't on the same page when it comes to starting a family. Vanessa is busy enough taking care of her father. Daryl's solution to that is to put the old man into a retirement home. Calvin and Percy arrive outside the jewelry store. Percy's plan is to go in with the gat in hand, shock and awe. Calvin wants to go about the robbery in a less dramatic way. Percy enters the store with Calvin inside a tote bag. They ID the diamond. Percy sets down the bag and little feet pop out the bottom. Calvin walks into the base of the enclosure that contains the diamond. Meanwhile, Percy runs interference with the sales lady. Calvin takes out his drill. He begins to cut out a circle from below the structure. In short order, he gets the diamond. Time to make a smooth escape. As Percy tries to slide out the door, the sales lady notices that the diamond is missing. Percy and Calvin make it out to the car. It's time to speed away, but Percy's getaway car ain't getting away. Upon inspection, the two notice that Percy's car has been booted. It's time to shuffle them dogs and make a run for it. The two duck inside the drugstore to evade the cops. Inside the same store is the disappointed couple, Daryl and Vanessa. With the cops now inside the store and capture being imminent, Calvin sees an opportunity to offload the diamond. He runs over and drops it into Vanessa's purse. Calvin and Percy watch the couple as they leave the store. Calvin and Percy follow them to their house. They sneak up to the window. Calvin peers inside and sees the purse with the diamond inside. Vanessa greets her dad. She gives him the news about her promotion. We learn that Pops ain't 100% sold on Daryl being the man for his daughter. Outside, Percy wants to kick in the door and take the diamond G-style. Once again, Calvin has to talk him down. A woman pushing a stroller down the street gives Percy an idea. Calvin sees where this is going from a mile away. He strongly objects, but he's overruled. Calvin is dressed like a newborn baby. Percy drops the bundle of joy on the steps and rings the doorbell. While waiting to be discovered, Calvin gets a full bladder of dog piss. This is high-level comedy here, folks. Daryl comes out and finds Calvin. Vanessa joins him as he reads the letter left behind. They bring Calvin inside. Pops develops an instant dislike of the crumb snatcher. They have to change this pissy baby's diapers. They discover that this kid is packing a Magic Johnson. He's swinging. He's dragging the floor. Vanessa calls child services, but it's closed for the weekend. Pop suggests that they put the kid back on the doorstep and let the gods decide his fate. We meet the crime boss, Walken, for the first time. He's the one who commissioned Percy to steal the diamond, but Percy has no diamonds, only excuses. Walken isn't a patient man. He gives Percy 24 hours to come up with the diamond. The neighbors come over to Vanessa's to see the new addition. Neighbor Brittany does her best not to point out the oddity of this creature, but her husband Greg calls it straight down the line. Neighbor Janet notices that Calvin is agitated. Brittany grabs Calvin for some nursing. Well, this is Christmas come early for Calvin. He's about to climb Mount Silicone. Little man can barely contain himself. But the lady neighbors perform a bait and switch. Calvin ends up with Janet titty in his mouth. The parties prepare to go home. Brittany goes over to say goodbye to baby Calvin. Now earlier, little man missed out on feasting on them double bubbles, but he ain't done with her yet. He gives Brittany a man-sized tonsil-tickling kiss. Amazingly, no one bats an eye about this baby's behavior. It's bedtime. Vanessa lays Calvin on the bed. She blows a raspberry onto Calvin's stomach. The man baby ain't playing around. Vanessa's about only 4 inches away from rocking his mic. She finds herself in a life and death struggle with a man-strength baby trying to get it in.
Fight!
Daryl joins and it's time to take the baby's temperature. This will not be oral. It's going to be done in a rough and rugged manner. Calvin does his best MMA moves to avoid the violation, but eventually he submits to the plug. Lights out. After Vanessa and Daryl fall asleep, Calvin gets up and sneaks out of the crib. He goes into the study and gets Vanessa's purse. Inside is the diamond. He calls Percy to let him know that the diamond is in his possession. As he's talking to Percy, Calvin is surprised by Pops. The old man's got him in the crosshairs. Daryl has to come to Calvin's rescue. Daryl chastises Pops for his assault on the little child. As Calvin is taken away, he gives Pops the finger. Daryl and Calvin share a glass of milk. In this moment, Daryl professes heartfelt words about his intentions to be the best dad he can be to the abandoned baby. Daryl returns to bed and talks Vanessa into a session of baby making. Grown-ass Calvin is in the crib with ringside seats to a live sex act. It's like he's in Amsterdam or something. The next morning, Vanessa is tweaking from last night's pounding. She's going on and on about how Daryl laid it down and then ran it back again. Daryl only remembers one nut. I hate to tell you, player, I think there might have been a second shooter in your bed. This is an act too far, man. This little cat done dropped some D on Daryl's old lady. Vanessa finishes breakfast for her dad. The news reporter on TV begins to talk about the diamond heist. Calvin sees this and begins to cry and fuss for the channel to be changed. Calvin then goes into stealth mode. Using the baby jumper, Calvin steals all the food off of Pop's plate. When Vanessa notices the empty plate, Pop tells her that the baby stole his food. Daryl comes down for breakfast. He shares with Vanessa that he found her Pops holding Calvin at gunpoint last night. Vanessa shares that her Pops accused the baby of stealing his breakfast. Daryl once again brings up the subject of putting Pops in a home. She isn't sold on the idea. She heads out to work, leaving Daryl and Calvin alone. Daryl makes his best efforts at playing daddy. When Daryl gets distracted, Calvin takes the opportunity to cold clock him with a frying pan. Calvin grabs Vanessa's purse off the counter. He makes his way out of the door. Before he can escape, he spots Vanessa returning inside to get her purse. Calvin drags Daryl's lifeless body over to the couch. Calvin rummages through the purse and grabs the diamond. When Vanessa enters the room, Calvin has to dish the diamond into the diaper bag. A groggy Daryl rejoins the living. He receives marching orders from Vanessa to take Calvin to the park. Daryl plays catch with Calvin at the park. It's a disaster for Daryl and his probability of fathering his own child. Pitch the baseball to Calvin, line drive to the nuts. Calvin shoots the rocket launcher toy, straight to Daryl's nuts. Calvin throws a toy airplane. It crashes right into Daryl's nuts. They should have called this movie The Black Nutcracker. Daryl rejoins the neighborhood men. He complains about these nut-seeking toys. A proud Daryl watches Calvin from afar. What he can't see is that Calvin is robbing the kids in a dice game. Daryl steps away from monitoring Calvin for a second. Percy pops out from behind a tree and beckons Calvin. When he asks Calvin which diaper bag contains the diamond, Calvin is uncertain. I'm watching this and thinking, man, just grab all the bags. Anyway, the neighborhood ladies notice Percy and call him out. Percy grabs one of the bags and breaks out. Janet scoops Calvin up in her arms. She expresses that Percy took her bag. Percy delivers the bag to Walken. Percy ain't too bright. Scat didn't even check whether the diamond was in the bag. Walken empties the bag of its contents. No diamond, just a bunch of baby shit. Walken doesn't kill him right then and there. He's got a different agenda. Walken's gonna have his goons follow Percy to find out who Percy's partner is. The fellas attend a hockey game. While Daryl is busy watching the game, Calvin reaches into the diaper bag and retrieves the diamond. As Daryl turns to address him, Calvin swallows the diamond. Calvin becomes a menace. He's drinking other fans' beers, plus he's making crude remarks to the women. It's Daryl who ends up paying the price for his misdeeds. Daryl gets caught up in a back and forth with the opposing team's goon. It's all fun and games until Calvin throws the beer and hits the player. Cat came into the stand and let fists fly. Calvin got in a little offense, but eventually he got stumped into a deep sleep. Pops is at the bar watching the game. Afterwards, he sees a news story about a pint-sized criminal being a suspect in a diamond heist. That criminal is shown to be Calvin. Pops is on to his shit. At Calvin's birthday party, Greg organizes a backyard football game. Greg is out here playing like he's trying to get a roster spot. Cats collecting skulls. Little kids can get it too. Get up, son. If you can still breathe, you can still play. In the end, Calvin joins forces with a little passive kid. They manage to defeat Greg by hitting him in the... Surprise, surprise. The nuts. The party goes on. Daryl gets the kids to sing happy birthday to Calvin. Calvin tries to hold back his emotions, but he can't fight back the tears over the regret that he didn't have a father like Daryl. Pops comes over with a peace offering for Calvin. He gives him a teddy bear. Daryl answers a knock at the door. It's Percy claiming to be the father of the baby. Daryl scolds Percy for abandoning his child. Percy sticks out his chest like he's about that business. But Percy is better at talking about whipping ass than actually whipping ass. While this is taking place, Walken's goons are watching from afar. They mistakenly ID Daryl as Percy's partner in crime. Lil Calvin's got the shits. Swallowing a diamond a quarter size of your stomach will do that. After downing some castor oil, Calvin struggles and struggles and struggles, but he eventually took the Browns to the Super Bowl. Well, not in the bowl, but in his diapers. Vanessa whisks him away to change him. Daryl is exhausted from the day's activities. Vanessa runs into the room and jumps him. She's excited beyond reason. She made a discovery while changing Calvin's diapers. In the mess, she found a big shitty diamond. Now Vanessa's reasoning is that Daryl must have come through on completing the engagement ring. Daryl is puzzled, but Vanessa's verbal diarrhea won't let the brother get a word in. The couple go out to celebrate, leaving Pops to watch Calvin. Pop puts the couple at ease. He tells him that him and the little baby will get along just fine. Pops begins to put the hurt on Calvin. Put his head on the ceiling and then put his head on the floor. Calvin retaliates with, he gets it again, a nut shot. Calvin breaks character. He confesses to Pops that he did steal the diamond. He tells him that trouble follows that diamond. Daryl and Vanessa are in jeopardy because the crime boss is coming for the diamond. Calvin is done with the explaining. It's time to knuckle up, old man. Daryl and Vanessa return home and Pops and the baby are midway through round 4 of their fight. Daryl breaks it up. This was the straw that broke the baby's back. Vanessa calls the senior home folks to come get Pops. As Pops is being dragged out the door, he tells Vanessa to check the teddy bear. Later on, Daryl decides to check the teddy bear. The stuffed toy turns out to be a spy video camera. When Daryl plugs it in, he sees video of Calvin talking about the robbery and putting a beating on Pops. Meanwhile, upstairs, Vanessa is putting the diamond into her jewelry box. Calvin is watching her from his crib, ready to boost that joint. After leaving Calvin unattended, Daryl and Vanessa return upstairs to an empty room. No Calvin and no diamond. Daryl calls the police to come over. Calvin hooks up with Percy outside, and he's got the diamond with him. Percy tells Calvin that Walken is headed to Daryl's house to get the diamond. Calvin realizes that Daryl and his family are in immediate danger. He throws Percy out of the moving vehicle. Walken and his goons show up to Daryl's house. Walken is ready to draw blood. Baby Calvin has snuck back into the house. He interrupts the conflict. Walken orders one goon to take the child upstairs. The big goon takes Calvin upstairs and places him into the crib. Every time he cuts off the lights, Calvin springs up and cracks him over the head. The lights go on, Calvin's asleep. The lights go off, head crack. This goes on for a while and eventually the goon is sent crashing down the stairs. Walken sends both goons after the baby. 2 versus 1, they're still not a match for Calvin. With the help of the baby jumper, Calvin manages to knock out both of them. Meanwhile, Daryl manages to escape Walken. He ambushes the crime boss and grabs his gun. Unfortunately, when he does this, Daryl is wearing oversized toy hands without the dexterity to pull a trigger. Walken seizes the gun and marches Daryl back into the living room. Calvin is already in the room. He's holding the same toy airplane that he was playing with earlier in the park. Walken is now cautious of this ninja baby. He tells Daryl to make the baby get rid of the airplane. Daryl gives Calvin a look, an unspoken understanding that nuts are about to be assaulted. Calvin launches the plane and it crashes into Walken's nuts. Ow. Walken goes down to the floor. Daryl and Calvin run over and pick up his gun. Walken presumes that Daryl is too soft to shoot him. However, it's Calvin that's holding the gun. Suddenly, the police burst into the house. They grab Walken and place him under arrest. In the aftermath, the police still seem to believe that Calvin is a baby. This is despite all the TV reports of him being a suspect. Daryl makes Calvin hand over the diamond to the police. After doing so, the police inform Daryl that he'll be getting a reward for his return. Daryl and Calvin decide to keep their goodbye short. Just keep the emotions at a minimum. There ain't no need for any man tears. Just turn 180 and walk in opposite directions. The tension is too much to overcome. Daryl invites Calvin in to share one more glass of milk. Embrace and credits.